Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining our webinar today. My name is Jamie Healy, and I'm the Senior Grant Writer of Foundation Partnerships for Best Friends Animal Society. Today, I'm going to be talking with you about the importance of cultivating foundation partnerships and increasing your chances of success for long-term partnerships. Just a quick note before we dive in, you can replay this webinar as many times as you like, so don't worry about trying to get in all of your notes on the first run. If you have any questions about the content in this webinar or about any grant-related topics, please post your questions in the digital community directly below this video. Over the past few months, our team has shared many presentations on various grant-related topics, such as grant readiness, researching grants and foundations, digging deeper into 990s to ensure the prospect is a good fit, and relationship building through stewardship to keep the relationship post-award. The critical piece we haven't yet addressed is how to cultivate the individuals at the foundations that you've identified as good prospects. This piece can be time-consuming. It's not always easy, and you won't always be effective, but it's vital to your success in building long-term partnerships to put in the time here. And we must be patient, as the entire life cycle of grants is generally a lengthy process overall. Many folks believe all that they have to do is find an RFP or foundation prospect and submit a proposal. This is what is called a blind submission, also known as proposing before the first date. I'll give you a real-life example of what that looks like. Let's say you come home and get the mail. In it, you find a few bills and letters, and then you see a donor appeal from Lucky Dog Rescue Ranch, an organization you know nothing about and have had no previous contact with. What are you going to do with that request for your money? How many of you answered honestly and said toss it in the recycle? Don't you think a grant maker who receives a proposal from you and your organization without ever having heard from you might have a similar reaction? It's important to remember that people grant to people, not words on paper. The exception to this rule might be when a foundation representative reached out to you to invite you to apply due to having had knowledge of your organization, someone recommended you to them, or an introduction had been made between someone at your org and their foundation. Now we're going to discuss cultivation methods. Think of this as the courting stage. Yeah, that's an old school language, but it's still a necessary action in building the foundation of a relationship. Here are some simple ideas you can use to begin your outreach. Send a brief intro letter. Tell them who you are while you're reaching out and what you want. And be sure to schedule a follow-up phone call. Make an initial phone call to introduce yourself and your organization. Drop by with some materials about your organization and just say you were nearby at a meeting and thought they might be interested. Send a personal handwritten note card. Draft a casual email. Caution here on the emails. It's easy to ignore them, so you have to be pretty catchy to get their attention. Share a success story you think will grab their attention. Invite them to your facility, but make it a special reason so they feel exclusive. Or invite them to an existing event or hold a cultivation event. If they aren't in your area, consider sharing a video or a recent heartwarming story that relates to their purpose to help them feel engaged in the work that you do. Overall, you want to try in any way you can to get an in-person meeting, but use a casual approach. Say something like, hey, I'm going to be in your area and I'd love to stop by with some coffee and donuts. Even better if you are in their area already. So what do you do when you have no idea what to say? Okay, this is the one that, in my opinion, keeps people from reaching out. I'm a total introvert, so you can't fool me on this one because I live it. That said, there are lots of angles we can use to start a conversation with a foundation rep. You can create talking points or a script, but be sure to make it natural and personal. It shouldn't sound like it's scripted. Remember to be casual. You want to entice them, not pitch them straight out of the gate. Basically, you just want to get the point across that you've done your homework, you've noticed your missions met align, you see they've funded similar groups, and you'd love to get together for 30 minutes to tell them about your work and the difference your organization is making. I have a few tips that I think might be helpful for those who are new to cultivation. First, how to know if they definitely want to hear from you. Start by doing your homework. Review their website, the guidelines, and the RFP. There are usually some pretty clear language indicators that will tip you off. You might see things like, please call prior to applying or submitting. If you have questions or concerns, please contact. For questions about the application or reporting process, contact the program officer. If you have questions that weren't addressed in our guidelines or frequently asked questions, you may reach out to. Or please attend one of our grant orientations. Note, if this is an option, absolutely do this. It's your chance to meet in person and ask questions. These are all excellent indicators that they want to hear from you. But if there's nothing listed about contacting, just give it a shot. Do you know who you're trying to get in touch with at the foundation? There are several types of people you might be trying to cultivate. The key is people, not foundations. Gatekeepers, trustees, program officers, board members, third-party advisors, account managers, etc. Those are the folks you're looking for. Some foundations have program officers and paid staff, while others only have unpaid volunteers and trustees. There are also firms in which advisors handle the foundation's management. Part of the paid staff or firm's job is to get to know the nonprofits in their community. Therefore, it may be easier to get a meeting when the foundation has one or the other. But still try to get a meeting with those who don't have paid staff. This is always to your benefit. Be casual and respectful of our time. Don't expect an hour or more to be possible. Start at 30 to 45 minutes over a cup of coffee. Invite them to see your organization in action, either at an offsite event or an on-site program activity. And leverage your connections. See if your board members, staff, or existing contacts happen to know the individual that you're trying to reach out to. The gatekeepers can be tricky. You want to try to make friends with them with the ultimate goal of their allowing you access to the actual individual you want to speak with. That said, sometimes it might be best for someone aside from you to try reaching out. They may have more luck. Sometimes it's just a hierarchy thing or something else completely beyond your control. And keep in mind that trust is built over time by being consistent. So if you put in the time and are consistent in your communications, you will be successful in building relationships. What do you do if you're doing all the right things and it's just not working? First, it's important to note that it's very likely never going to happen after the first contact attempt. Using an example of a recent cultivation strategy I did in a new prospect state, this should give you an idea of the possible process and time involved. I started out with an intro letter, and then I followed up with a personal invitation to an event that we were having in their area. I followed up to the invitation just to get an RSVP from them, and then if they weren't going to be able to make it, I tried to schedule a meeting with them since I was going to be in their area. And then I reached out after the event with a teaser letter, letting them know that I had info I'd love to tell them about that occurred at the event and new programmatic work that we will be doing as a result of that. And then finally, I called to schedule a meeting or phone call. Some took me up on it and some haven't. And just an FYI, the goal of the meeting is for them to either want an additional informational meeting or they personally invite you to apply. That's the money spot. Not all grant makers have the capacity or preference for relationships pre-award. As I explained earlier, some just don't have staff or the hours for staff to be able to talk to every prospective applicant. Don't take it personal, but do decide your next step. Is there value in applying anyway? Is there a really high chance of winning despite no contact being made? And if so, why do you get that feeling? Maybe you just put them on your stewardship program for a specific period of time to see if it results in a future invite to apply. It's also completely okay to move on and not waste additional time after you've been persistent and put in the right amount of effort. Just continue to expand your prospect list and keep moving forward. And remember this quote from Stephen Covey when it seems frustrating and like it's taking forever to get a response from someone. Most of us spend too much time on what is urgent and not enough time on what is important. Don't let that be you. Cultivation will lead to long-term partnerships and support. Now that you know how to find strong prospects, your organization is prepared to manage the grant process, and you understand the importance of developing and maintaining relationships with your foundation partners, we hope you're feeling much more confident and prepared about getting in there and starting to build a fundraising plan that includes grants as a part of its strategy. To help further you along in this process, next month we'll be sharing best practices in crafting a strong proposal so you can be ready to write winning grants that will help support your organization's mission for years to come. So be sure to join us next month. And remember, if you have any questions or comments you'd like us to follow up with you on, please leave your feedback below this video post in the digital community. Thanks so much for joining us today, and we look forward to hearing your feedback and ideas.